get a business truck, a big old working truck, a hard working truck. Man, with all the activity on my property lately, I've seen a lot of commercial vehicles come and go. And they come in so many shapes and sizes because trucks are like tools in all kind of industries, and they've got to be outfitted the right way. So Work Trucks keeps a variety down there on the lot on 3rd Avenue downtown. And so you can go down there almost at any given time and find a deal because these are pre-owned. The depreciation shock is gone. They find them gently used off lease. And I'm not kidding. You can go look and see. They look like brand new trucks, but they've been titled, they've been used or leased, and that saves you money. They go through them themselves, 125 points, check everything they can think of. And it has to pass all those points on the test or it won't make the lot. Their reputation is riding on the quality of those trucks. So if you're in a particular industry, if you need a bucket truck or you need just a cab and chassis, or you need vans of all shapes and sizes, or flatbeds, or just a good old shop truck, something to haul some things around town, do deliveries and pickups, it's Work Trucks. Go see Bubba and the whole team and let them get you financed, let them get you some extended warranties, give you a little peace of mind, and keep that business moving as we get right here in the middle of 2026. Hard to believe the year is almost half over. TRUX, put an X in there if you want to look at some of the inventory online. WorkTrucksLLC.com, WorkTrucksLLC.com. All right, I'm going to get off the Senate race for just a little bit. If y'all still want to call about that, I find the calls fascinating today, and the passions on that issue are pretty strong. But we'll go. There's a story coming out of the Gulf Coast. A lot of you have, in fact, I do. My crew is down on the beach this weekend. AJ, they left me back here with the cats. Left me with the cats and went to the beach. You know, it's all right though. I have things to do. I'm busy. Brother's got to work.
Like water, right? I mean, take them down to the beach.
The cats don't bother me. They don't bark in the middle of the night and wake me up. So we're gonna get along. Me and the little bros are be fine. They did come to me with a list of grievances already today because there's construction people at the house and everybody's gone and they don't know what's going on. They're tripping. Anyway, so my crew's down there. They just got down there this afternoon, and it turns out there's been a shark bite reported down in South Walton. There was apparently a child suffered a leg injury in about knee-deep water down near the watercolor area, which is right there next to Seaside and where all those a lot of people go to those particular beaches. It was actually this morning, and they say the cause is not 100% determined, but they do believe it was marine life. They think it could be a shark. The child did get some kind of injury. So out of complete caution, they did a little beach shutdown between two areas down there for a number of hours just to keep an eye on the waters. So, you're going to come to that from time to time. As many of you know, there was that new shark warning system. I know Alabama passed it. I want to say they did it in Congress as well, and named after the young lady from Mountain Brook that lost her arm. And, I don't know if that's going to be helpful. I really don't. I mean, sharks are quick, and I'm not sure there's any system we can develop that would prevent it. But it is an effort to put the word out as soon as something does happen in an area. So the waters, according to the picture that I'm looking at here, I think it's shot from today, just gorgeous down there right now, crystal clear, easy to see what is in the water. So that was a little story that's happening this afternoon as well. Something a little bit off the beaten path. Let me double check with the headlines. Of course, we've talked already about the Supreme Court ruling validating Alabama's 6-1 district. I'm still not happy about it. The state thinks they won. They just took the lazy route. And of course, the court was going to validate that. They've already put out a landmark ruling. The rest was just a hiccup. The LA and California races are still amusing to me. The Democrats are going to steal these seats one way or the other. They have designed a system to steal the seats. It's why they do this voting after Election Day. They do this counting after Election Day. They got to know how much they need to make up. It's the oldest trick in the book. Before even voting machines and all this technology, this is what people were doing to steal elections. Wait till the last minute, wait till the real vote's in, and then make up the difference. So here we go. We got to watch these idiots out there doing this stuff. This Katie Porter, do you remember her, that mean fat girl that threw potatoes at her husband or whatever it was she was accused of doing, yelling at people? She came in 4%, almost last. What was she, like fifth or sixth place? fun times. The country's bouncing a lot of fools right now. A lot of people are just getting bounced completely out of office, and it's in both parties. These are Democrats that didn't want to go for her stupid antics. So that was fun. And then because of the Democrats, here's a business story. Samsung announced today, this is a huge business story. They're getting the hell out of New Jersey, and they're going to Texas. Plano, Texas, I think, is where their other facility is, and they're just going to move their whole American corporate headquarters to Texas. Another win for Texas. Another win, more wins for Florida. They keep going. Nick Saban was on the Hill today talking about the sports. They're trying to fix the NIL. I support the effort. It's a mess. College football is no fun anymore. It's just stupid. The kids transferring on a whim, a bunch of whiny kids that didn't earn the attention they get, getting overpaid. It's just crazy. But it's just funny to me. Saban will forever be a legend. Total authority when he walks in a room, even on Capitol Hill. But there's a little bit of something. I was just listening to his testimony where he's talking about all the money that's now spent on the kids. And I'm thinking to myself, this guy started the coaches' salary wars when he was getting astronomical money, which would be laughed at now when he was hired, and they kept upping the price and getting those contracts for these coaches. Now all these random coaches are making $10 million a year, and yet he's making the case that the players are, I guess there's too much money involved. I was like, you wasn't saying that when they were paying his ass. But hey, it is what it is, and he's got a point. They've got a bill, and I don't mean to turn this into a sports show, and I don't have all the details in front of me, but it's going after things like you got to play college football within 5 years of graduating high school or turning 19. You got a 5-year window to play college ball. You get one transfer during the course of your career. I don't think that'll ever stand up. I mean, these are supposed to be student athletes. What they need to do, because regular students get to transfer when they want to, well, then you're saying they're not regular students. They may as well call them employees, put them under a 1099 contract, hold them to the contract like the real world. There are kids their age that are signing contracts to do things in business and in jobs all over the place that aren't in college. So if they're going to produce revenue for the school and get paid to do it, they need to just be under contract. Put a no-compete in there like they do to everybody in our industry, where they own you and own your whole intellectual worth and not allow you to move or compete. That could happen with the athletes too. I don't know. We'll see where the bill goes. There's a lot more to be fleshed out. But Saban was on the Hill today, and that was a pretty big story. The other story, I'll throw one more thing out there, and we got to get more of these. We got a lot of Barry Moore phone calls this afternoon because of a story that dropped today. And I'll try to re-explain that for the audience that just got in. The New York Post got a new story about the Southern Poverty Law Center. And not only were they funneling money and had insiders in these so-called hate groups, they were reimbursing them for cross-burning expenses. I'll get into that later. They literally needed some actual cross burnings. I mean, nobody's legitimately burned a cross in 40 years, but they need to have this iconography. They just did it because of we were fighting over districts here in the state of Alabama, and everybody wants to go back to the 60s. Even Doug Fluke had a comment today saying, we've rejoined the Confederacy, because we went back to the same number of districts and the same composition we've had for 40 years. Suddenly, so these people at a drop of a hat will pull it out. They'll whip this thing out and act like it's 1965. They just romanticize that whole period that was before most of us were alive. And so the SPLC needs, I wonder how much, do they rent Klan robes? I mean, if you just wanted to dress up for a Halloween, do they have a closet down there in Montgomery at their office where you can rent a robe? Maybe they do. Maybe in their off time, they go out and parade around just to keep the story going. It's good for fundraising. So another SPLC stupid story this afternoon. And then back to the Senate race. Let me just try to recap. Some people get in late and didn't hear how the story came. This is the best summary I can give you. I'm a little ignorant of how this works. I admit that on the front end. I did not serve in the military and don't understand the ranks and the status markings on a person's retirement from the military or discharge from the military, even an honorable discharge. So months and months ago, somebody had dug up Barry Moore's service record and were making the claim that he had overstated his service. In fact, he was not even a veteran. Really? I mean, so I didn't know what to make of it. It's hard for me. I'm not an investigative journalist anymore. I just talk on the radio. Hard to make any sense out of that. I wrote it off as just sort of a resume fluff. Apparently he was in the ROTC and he got assigned to a guard unit and he did some drills and that was about it. He didn't deploy. But true veterans, people that put the time in, achieved their ranks, worked through the system and did all these things, they understand the difference in an E this and an E that. And they're looking at the service records going, this guy didn't even qualify as an actual veteran, that he's been faking that status the whole time he's been in politics. He ran a whole identity around it when he ran for Congress. So they posted his congressional ads from those days in the story. The story's in the Gateway Pundit. You can make of it what you will. I was willing to give more a huge latitude on this, again, not being an expert on it. But veterans groups kept pressing the issue. I kept getting a lot of incoming. So I asked him, tell me about your veteran status. And he said he served 6 years and that he was discharged honorably and he had an opportunity to get a job in Wisconsin or something. So he dipped. He was notified he was about to be called to the first Gulf War, but he never actually got deployed. And that was about it. So he has low-keyed his service claims of late. Before, there was a lot of implication about his service and his ties to the community and his understanding of what veterans go through. Okay, so I wrote it off as, again, resume fluffing. They all do it. They all do it to some degree. Their businesses were more successful than they were. They love Jesus more than they really do. All of these things. I mean, they're an avid hunter and they hadn't been in 10 years, but they went and bought a hat at Walmart and did an ad. They all do this kind of stuff. And so the expectations are kind of low. But then the story dropped today in the Gateway Pundit, and it got a little bit of a new twist because apparently, and this is the new rub, and I do understand the dynamics of this a little bit better. Apparently in the story, there was a letter that Barry Moore signed onto that was directed at Tim Walz. Now, we famously know how Tim Walz overstated his service. Now, and I've gotten a lot of clarification from callers about all this stuff since the show started today. Tim Walz, it wasn't that he wasn't a veteran. He really did serve in the guard unit and put his time in and achieved the rank and became an officer and did all these things. But he claimed in a lot of speeches that he carried a rifle in combat in, I think, Iraq or Afghanistan, and he did not. He never deployed. In fact, he dipped the minute his unit was about to be deployed. And so it was a big hit on Walz during the 2020 campaign because the word salad lady had the stupidity of picking this weirdo because they can't find any other straight white males in the party. They go and find this guy, and the word straight is questionable. So they go find this guy and run him for vice president. They ran this guy for vice president. This is before he got caught mismanaging billions of dollars in his own state. So the big knock was that he didn't do any of these things. They called it stolen valor. When you claim a rank you didn't have, when you claim combat service, and there are degrees of it, right? There are degrees of it. There's on the other end claiming you're a combat injured vet from Afghanistan and you never even went or got injured. That's really, really egregious. There are other examples where guys that never even serve will go out and get a uniform and put a bunch of medals on it and walk around like they were in. That's stolen valor. So, but then you move it all the way down. The question, it seems to me here, is one, is Barry Moore actually a veteran based on the time he put in and the rank he achieved? But then there's this thing, and this kind of gave it some volume this afternoon, that in that letter about Walz, directed at Walz, he signed it Staff Sergeant Retired, giving his status and thus credibility to be signing on to this letter as a member of Congress who had served. Nobody ever questioned it. I still don't know whether that's legit or not. Our friend JD called up and made a clear case why he does not believe it was. We've not heard a statement from the Moore campaign this afternoon about why was he a staff sergeant. I can't look at the discharge papers and make any sense out of it, so I don't know what that means. but it's on the table today. And here we are 2 weeks out from the election. It's a story that's been around long enough that I asked both the candidates when I had them on about it prior to the primary. Moore gave me his answer about his status. I didn't have any reason to question it. I asked Jared Hudson about Moore's status and the rumor mill, and he didn't want to go there. He wanted to separate himself a different way, even though he clearly could, being a former Navy SEAL sniper, combat deployed sniper. And he didn't want to have to even go there. So now it's back. It's in the news, and we've had a lot of phone calls about it today. Sometimes controversies are what they are, and they're good opinions on both sides. And we've heard from both sides on this subject today, primarily from people that did serve and how they see it. I think they're the ones, you folks in the veteran community are the ones that can speak to this more clearly than those of us who are not. So how's that for an opening segment? Let's get Josh in here. We'll take a couple of calls, then I got to get the break. Josh, what's up with you this afternoon?
Hey, man, I think you fully nailed it on the recap. So I just have a couple of points and maybe a couple of questions. Am I coming through?
Yeah, I'm listening to you, buddy.
Okay. All right. One point. So I'll just say this about that since you did that recap. I'm not a service member. I think I've mentioned before my biggest hero in my life was my grandfather. Mm-hmm. He was a Vietnam era SEAL, and he spent the vast majority of his life not saying a single word about it. I honestly didn't even learn much about it till near the end of his days. I think that the veterans, I think that's their bag. I think it's kind of like JD said. You know, it's a big deal to them.
Yep.
I personally think that the combat boot statement, that was more of a turn of phrase sort of thing. That wasn't a big deal. But, all right, so my real points, though, are for the Barry Moore voters out there that are voting for Barry Moore specifically because of a Trump endorsement. I can't remember the guy's name, but the Iowa governor election today.
I'm lost on that.
Okay, well, the incumbent, essentially, the last minute, he got a Trump endorsement. But the Iowa guys, have you ever heard of a guy named Steve Deace?
Yes.
Okay. Steve Deace goes on and on about Iowa all the time. That's where he's from. He didn't like the incumbent. Unfortunately, right this second, I can't think of their names. Calorico keeps bumping it out of my head, that dumb name. But anyway, he made a point that, hey, we need to vote for this other. He was a fan of someone else, but we need to vote for this other dude because we can't let Mr. Incumbent get in there. He's no good. Trump endorsed Mr. Incumbent there last minute, but upset. The challenger won. The outsider won.
Yeah.
And the point about that kind of ties into another guy you probably know the name of, Michael Berry.
Yes.
He went on a big long spiel one day about rules and following rules. He kind of made a really good point about there's a lot of people that follow the rules for the rules' sake, but what's really important is knowing the spirit of the rules and what you're really going for and doing that. Sometimes that's not actually the rule. His point was, you walk into a pizza parlor, ask for an extra topping last minute. They should put it on there because they're trying to please the customer. But the rule says, nope, your order's in. It's as it is. My point about the Barry Moore Trump endorsement is Trump endorsed Barry Moore. He knows Barry Moore. Barry Moore's a good guy. He doesn't know Jared Hudson. It's a safe thing for him to endorse Barry Moore. I'm pro Jared Hudson. I believe full well that he would better serve an actual Trump principle and agenda, that they're more aligned than Barry Moore is. I do think Barry Moore has political aspirations that Jared Hudson doesn't. He's got principle aspirations. So I just want to kind of point that out. Don't follow the rules for the rules' sake. Make sure you're looking at the letter of the law and the spirit of the law all at the same time. And beyond that, so.
Well, Josh, I tell you what. Let me hang on just a second. I'll let you finish. We're just pushing a break real hard. Let's get that in here, and we'll let you wrap up on the other side. Stay tuned. All right, y'all. 427. I'm just going to move. We'll let Dylan wrap up for another minute or two here, and then I'll see if we can get everything caught up. Dylan, excuse me, Josh. Josh, you keep going, then we'll go to Dylan. What's up?
Yes, sir. Yeah, so I was just saying that about Iowa. It'd be best if anybody's interested to look into it, since I forgot the names and can't be clear. But I don't think Trump's going to be mad about it, because they picked a guy that's more for Trump than he endorsed. I think that the same could probably be said about Jared versus Barry. Jared got in there, he'd be more thrilled about it because he'd be more about the principle of it. I haven't seen any sort of fluffing or massaging out of Jared whatsoever. No dishonesty whatsoever. It doesn't sit well to have even a slight bit of dishonesty, here and there. I know it's politics and it's just rife with it, so
Yep.
Take that for what it is.
All right, Josh, good call tonight. I appreciate you, buddy. As we just roll on toward the bottom of the hour, wanted to let him finish his thought. Got to be a busy show, and it's really this Gateway Pundit story that's driving a lot of the phone traffic this afternoon. Real quick, Douglas Cooling and Heating, another great home sponsor here on the show that can handle issues with your home. And again, they've taken care of me. I've owned 2 or 3 different houses, I think, over the years since we've been doing the radio show, and they've taken care of all of those situations, even my family members and their properties over the years. And it's everything from new installs to second opinions. I used them for a second opinion during a purchase with them. It was a smart move. Consider that if you're going to be buying, have that system checked out. They'll do that for you. And I will never take for granted the routine twice a year service ever again after learning a hard lesson years ago. So they come and do that for me. They've got a plumbing business. They're going to come do a new install for me this summer and check on a system that's acting a little janky here in just a couple of days. It's calldouglas.com if you want them to your house. Take care of that heating and air system, and it'll take care of you during the thick, hot summer that's on the way. It's calldouglas.com, license number 2017181, calldouglas.com. All right, y'all. Danny Knowles with the Knowles Group. The market took a big old fat steaming dump on the lawn today. It was down 620 points. I'm still old school, so I see 600 points and my eyes pop out. But really, that was just 1.2%. The markets are at levels nowadays where the dollar amount is not reflected percentage-wise. But they were down all across the board today. A lot of that is on more jitters from this on-again, off-again situation in the Middle East. Last night, Iran decided to attack Kuwait and our assets in Kuwait. And of course, we shot everything down. Nothing reached really anything, except for some people did get hurt on the ground. I think one person died and some people got injured. But it was largely ineffective, but it gave us a retaliatory excuse to take out some bases from which they were able to launch those missiles. You know, we smoked out most of what we can identify on the ground. And sometimes when it's like whack-a-mole, when they pop up, we know where that asset is. And it gives us an excuse to go hit it because we're supposed to be in a ceasefire. None of this looks like real diplomacy or anything close to a deal, and these maniacs are still doing their thing. Oil did go back up after a weekend of decline. That started pulling down the prices at the pumps. Today it had gotten back up to the mid-90s. We see how volatile it is and how quickly it goes up and down. But a lot of news associated with that in the news. But what I always tell you about Danny Knowles is, unlike me, you wouldn't want me giving you stock advice because I'd see a bad day. I'd see 600 points and go, sell everything. Danny would go, it's only a percentage. It'll go up tomorrow. We establish ourselves on trends and real analytics. And that's how they're able to place your investments smartly and help you with that. Depending on where you are and what your strategy is, they've got a different formula for you, basically. Some people on one end of the spectrum, you've already retired. You got control of your funds. You can move them where you want. You're living off your money. Your money's working for you, and congratulations. But you'd like a better return. One of the best compliments I got on Danny years ago was that this lady called up and said, he got me a pay raise, and I didn't quite get it at first. And she said, look, he reapproached everything with my money, and I'm making a better check from the return that he's getting, and that's what it's about. There are different risk factors, different timelines. Some of you are a little closer to the retirement end than others. Some of y'all are starting out or starting over. Life will wipe you out. Actually, wife will wipe you out too. Both can happen at the same time. And some people got to start over with your assets. And if so, they've got approaches for that too, to be a little more aggressive and get you caught up. What I can tell you is I've known Danny since we were kids. He's a straight up good guy, straight shooter. And he's not going to just sugarcoat things and tell you what you want to hear. He's going to tell you what you need to hear about what your obligations need to be to get yourself on track. And that's what a good coach does. It's Danny Knowles and his team, which are largely his fine young sons that have all become fine young men in the practice. I give Sherry, his wife, all the credit for that. It's the KnowlesGroup.com, N-O-L-E-S, the KnowlesGroup.com. And, of course, listen out for their show here on our station on the weekends, Understanding Money, the KnowlesGroup.com. All right, man, we've been in a lot of places this afternoon, and I think the Senate race controversy here in Alabama really got a lot more time than I thought it might. We'll still entertain calls on that, but I'm going to move on to a couple of other things. Haven't had a chance to get to. Two things kind of off the beaten path. One was this last night. I try not to consume too much news in the evening after a full day of just reading and taking on stuff and doing 4 hours of radio. I try to have to turn it off at night and do some other things. But last night I had to check in with the California situation late, and all of a sudden, I mean, there were 4 or 5 major stories that hit after our show was over last night. One of them was, of course, the Supreme Court ruling for Alabama's 6-1 district in Alabama's favor, this outbreak of hostilities with Iran, the election totals that were coming in. All this stuff was happening. The Republicans did surprisingly better than was anticipated, as you now know. The other one was the Scott Pelley guy at CBS News just getting canned. Now, I'll be honest with you. I know who he is. I think he's moderated debates. Sometimes I'll see clips with him in it. But I do not watch regular network newscasts, and I have not, even though I was in that business, I don't think I've sat down and watched a network newscast in 15 years. I don't have to. The internet's changed all that. And then there's 60 Minutes. That used to be appointment television, man. you'd see that little stopwatch ticking on Sunday night, and you'd stop what you were doing because it was compelling. And I know they've always had a slant. I've always been able to detect their slant. I remember one of the first lessons in I had a public relations class, had an excellent professor at Auburn back in the 80s in public relations, and we would do case studies of how PR is handled and how journalism is handled. And this was one of my eye-opening lessons about how slanted the news is at a young age when you're all ideological and you can't really see those things with the lack of experience. But as we're going through this semester of PR, our professor showed us a documentary based on a company, and I'm trying to remember the company. It wasn't Toyota, but it was some big company that insisted on having their own cameras in an interview when CBS 60 Minutes came to interview them. They wanted to preserve the interview in case anything was taken out of context, and they did. And then CBS did its version of the same interview. They both recorded it. 60 Minutes put one of the most slanted things you can ever imagine onto their 60 Minutes newscast on Sunday, and the company was able to immediately fire back because they had the full, complete answers that were absolutely the opposite of what the CEO that was being interviewed was saying. And I remember thinking, how do they get away with that? I mean, here I was 20 years old thinking that journalists had integrity, and they wouldn't do that just out of the lack of integrity. I would go on to get into the TV news business, where I think in those days there was still a pretense of a standard of getting it right and vetting what you report and getting both sides or your story doesn't air. And in those days, working all day to fill your portion of the newscast, even on a tight deadline, with whatever assignment you're handed. If you're a general assignment reporter, you don't know what you're going to get when you walk in the door that day. You could be running through the woods with the cops looking for a body, or you could be down at some water board meeting. You just don't know. But you make the best of it. You complete your assignment. You hit your deadline. You contribute to the show, and you take your tail home, come back and do it again. It's more of a routine than it would seem. But even in those days, if you couldn't find, sometimes it wasn't enough to be able to say, well, we contacted the other guy for a statement and he would not respond. You'd kind of get away with that. But if you couldn't get double sourcing and you couldn't get at least something from both sides, you wouldn't go on the air. And then you would have worked your ass off all day and you didn't even get to be on TV. And in those days, in that age when TV was still dominant and there wasn't an internet and thousands of people were watching every single night, you wanted to be on the air. So you tried to get it right and you tried to button everything down before your deadline so you didn't get rejected. There were some standard in the newsroom that this isn't good enough to be on our air. And what you also feared was that your competition would get it right and you wouldn't, and the competition is beating you that night and you worked all day for nothing. So you worked hard on that stuff to meet those standards. No fewer than 4 or 5 people on a typical story would vet anything that I wrote or anybody wrote. At some point, as you grow in confidence with the management in a newsroom, they'll give you some latitude. They would hand me a live hot mic and let me go because they knew I could handle a breaking news scene and not do anything stupid. And that's how I kind of grew in the businesses in that area. But for the written script, when you sit down and think through your words and pull out your sound bites, they would put you against a wall to try to make it better. I'll never forget, and I've used this line over and over the years when I was helping people with anything that they were going to present if you're helping somebody edit. I remember a news director looking over his glasses very early in my career and saying something, this is a paraphrase because I can't use the real language on an FCC licensed station, but I remember looking over his glasses and going, you'd rather look like a dumbass in this room rather than out there. So the reason we edit like this and stress you like this is so it's better. And he was forcing all these young hotshot reporters to accept that you're not going to write it right the first time. And having a second set of eyes is the only way to do things. And I got to the point where even in life, if I wrote somebody a personal letter, I'd always get somebody to look it over for me because a second set of eyes is always good. It makes the product better. CBS News and 60 Minutes used to be the standard in television. There have been many programs to come along, but it was CBS and Walter Cronkite. And it was that network, even Dan Rather before he flipped out and picked sides. But over time, the standards got dropped, political agendas crept in. Those agendas have always been part of a newsroom. I think that field always attracts more left-leaning people. It just does. It's a sort of a liberal notion to think you're going to save the world with your journalism. And I believe that at one point too. I mean, you like to think you're doing some good. And most, caring people want to do that with their career choices. And so, and it's what draws some people into politics. I would like to think it's what drew me to both. So, so you have a general environment that's more centered to the left in those days, but then it just became strict advocacy. And then an arrogance crept in that somehow that notion that they were not just helping people or doing good journalism, but that somehow they were above reproach. They could not be corrected. That if they're reporting on Trump as slanted and biased as it is, or anything else that they report, it is worthy of the effort, and the corners they cut were just part of the mission. And Scott Pelley, this arrogant twat of an anchor on CBS, just got fired. Now, by now, y'all know the story, the backstory. A reporter by the name of Barry Weiss, who, by the way, was fired from a major newsroom back in the day. I can't remember all the details of that story. Famously, I think it was the Times, but they canned her for trying to do mainstream, aggressive, standardized journalism, not being a partisan hack about everything. And boy, is she getting revenge on the whole industry by coming back and keeping with those standards. And now she's in charge of CBS, and the old boy network does not like it. So Pelley appointed himself to be the pushback. He appointed himself to be the Pope of what CBS was going to do and what we're not going to do. And he believed, I guess, his own promos, that he was more important than journalism itself or the network or anybody's ownership or management. And so he just raked this woman over the coals in a staff meeting, and then did it again in a private meeting. So and then there was also a producer involved. And so they just fired him for cause, which means you violated our standards. You don't get a dime. You don't get a payout. You don't get a golden parachute. You're not part of the team anymore. Bye, Felicia. And so they did it to him famously and posted the letter. Now he's pushed back today. So the point was that story was breaking last night with everything else that was going on. So I tried to keep up with it a little bit. And then today was just explosive to watch people respond to it. This is healthy for journalism. CBS is dead. They don't have the weight and the pull anymore. They killed their own prestige. All the networks have done this to themselves. Hollywood's done it to itself. We've talked about this over and over again. It's the same mentality. It's the same people. They're different. There's different types of elitism in our country. There's sort of financial elitism. That's the Wall Street people. There's some intellectual elitism in our university campuses and whatnot. But the thought elitism, the people that believe they're the thought leaders and that direct things in our society, come from this, from the movie studios and the mainstream media newsrooms all over the country. And they really do believe they're that important. They're above readers and viewers just walking away. But they've walked away from CBS. The thing needs to be reformed. They've got a shot to get half the country to come back and watch their product. It's never made mathematical sense to tell half of your customers to get out. I don't know of a single business anywhere in Birmingham that would just do that out of what they think is principle, but is really just mathematical stupidity and pure arrogance. But Pelley is as little as I actually know about him personally, other than seeing him on the periphery. Again, I don't watch their products, but this is another salvo in a sequence of arrogant jackasses that aren't really serving the public, that have gone by the wayside. I can give you a whole host of them, a lot of them on these news networks. And it's a good thing. It's a healthy thinning. The thing is, I was just talking about the movie studios. We got a movie right now. I haven't seen it. I'm not into horror or suspense movies, but I may watch it just because of the buzz. But a young man from Mobile, he's 26 years old. You heard about this thing, AJ? This dude makes a horror movie, shot it in 3 weeks on a very minimum budget, and it's blowing the doors off Hollywood. It's made, I think, $250 million. There was other money spent on promoting it and whatever, but rather than the studio people and the mainstream talent and all the stars, he just went and made a good movie. And he ignored all the contract checklist you got to have in all the movies nowadays. Made a good suspense movie. I think it's called Obsession. I've only seen clips of it. It's out at the theaters, I think, and it's going to have a digital release in a couple of weeks. But he's embarrassing Hollywood. Here's a kid with no real pedigree, formal training, big studio backing. None of the old dead dinosaur industry could make up for just pure talent and just putting a good product out. And that's what the kid did. There's another movie parallel to that that's out too, called something like I don't know, Backrooms or anyway. I was loosely reading about this the other day, and it was fascinating to me. AI is going to give tools to people that wouldn't have had a studio that can make better stuff than Hollywood's making, and it's a good challenge. I used to fear it and feel for the intellectual property and the humans involved in this industry, but the humans have screwed it up, and they made movies and entertainment and television news unwatchable. It's just off-putting. It's not legitimate. There's no heart to it anymore. It's just agenda stuff all the time, and it lacks credibility that way. And so we'll all take a walk. There are way too many options in the modern world than watching Scott Pelley or going to see the latest stupid thing that's on the screen that's been bastardized and regurgitated over some formulaic situation. I guess the big industries will learn at some point, but I'm always for the little guy. And when the little guys can run Scott Pelley off or change how Hollywood works or challenge the entire system, so that's what I romanticize. The left, they get all into Che Guevara in the 1960s and protest culture. Not me. I get into slaying giants, man. David and Goliath. That's the story that appeals to me a whole lot. All right, back here in just a minute. Leland Live, Talk 99.5. Man, how's your roof looking? When's the last time you crawled up there and walked around and kicked some shingles and flipped them up and checked them out? No, none of us do that. We don't do that. I don't do that. You just got to hope everything's okay up there until you see trouble. Sometimes you can step back, maybe step back from your house and look and see that it's aging or whatever. You need a good roofer in your life, especially if you run into trouble. A lot of people ran into trouble this week with those storms that came through. I've got a roofer to beat all roofers, and I really believe you should put Greg Nelson's name and number somewhere where you can get to it in a pinch if you do have an emergency, or if you know your roof is starting to age. They all have a lifespan, just like us. They get old and need to be replaced. And Greg Nelson will come and handle that for you. Either just the full roof job, and he's got finance companies to help with that, or if it's dealing with an insurance company, you better do that right. You can wind up getting your policy canceled, or you deal with some of these fly-by-night roofers and you can just flat get ripped off. Y'all, it is Greg Nelson. His company is Storm Restoration Roofing. Here's his main phone number, and so jot this somewhere. May not need it now. You're probably barely listening to me right now because you're not thinking about your roof. But boy, when you start having a leak or you've got wind damage and something bad has happened, you're looking for this number. How are you going to find it? Put it under Storm Restoration, 205-542-3531. Now, Greg was telling me earlier in the week, with all the rain we had, they just really got backed up. And he wanted to be fair with the audience and let folks know that, to be patient. He's going to get to his commitments. He always has. That's why he's been in business. I mean, he's going on 30 years. So just know it's a weather-sensitive business. And now that we've had some dry spells, he's getting these things knocked out and helping people with a very complicated thing, which is your roof projects. Storm Restoration Roofing. One more time with that number, 205-542-3531. Well, there goes get to the top of the hour music. So we're going to get to the top of the hour and come back and do one more hour, more of your phone calls about any of these things and breaking news when we get it. We need to talk about ticks and dudes crawling into sewers and disappearing. I'm not kidding. Those things are on my list today too. We'll get to them here one at a time. Leland Live, Talk 995. Y'all stay tuned.